Live from the Mighty Veedverks Airship, I'm Travis Lippert, CEO of Verks Unlimited Limited. I'm here with Julie Richardson, and today we have with us, Dr. Regina Nelson from the ECS Therapy
Center.
Mm-hmm. I could never get that
it's
right.
Close enough.
This is amazing. If you're watching, I encourage you to, we're going to drop some knowledge on you because we have with us one of the people who just really has answers about cannabis and its medical value that, you know, the rest of us are still kind of searching around for. So thank you for joining us. If you can hear us okay, I'm always concerned about our audio levels, so please, somebody give me a thumbs up if that sounds. Hey, Mary.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Hi, Mary.
I'm playing Dre Gaines in the background, by the way. Dre is a very talented hip-hop artist, and he also owns Grassroot Greens in Oklahoma City, and I highly recommend going by there and hanging out, buying some stuff. That'd be great. But okay, let me turn that down some, and cool. All right, we're all set up. We're flying this thing. How's it going?
Good.
Thank you for coming.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's great to see you both.
I was so excited. You know, I was disappointed when this week's person had to cancel, but I understood it because she wasn't feeling well. And it was just beautiful synchronicity happening, because just as I got that text, I was walking in and Travis was talking to you, and I heard that you were in town. I'm like, tell her to go. Let's just go on. So it was meant to be for you to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It was good timing on my part to have called you that day.
But
we could get into the first thing, which you have so many interesting things that I want you guys to hear. But the first thing is that on October 17th through 21st, in Denver, you are running Signing for the Times?
Signs for the Times.
Signs for the Times. Will you tell us about that? Because I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, so Signs for the Times is a project under my nonprofit organization, the ECS Therapy Center. And I'm going to tell you the story. I had a volunteer come to me a number of years ago who is... she is an interpreter she's hearing, but she does sign language, and she interprets for people primarily in the school systems where she works. And her husband got cancer and came to cannabis therapy, and she realized very quickly there were not words in sign language for her to communicate what was going on with her deaf friends. And so it's been her mission, and it's kind of become my mission over a period of a couple of years to help in that area. As a social scientist, the way you normalize things is through language. And sign language is a huge language. And it's very contextual. It's not, text-based. You're not looking up words in a glossary. And things like the endocannabinoid system, to need to spell those out, say in a doctor's appointment, really slows the conversation. And so we brought together a team of certified deaf interpreters who have some experience building medical language and going and learning about medical conditions and having their signs accepted into ASL. And so that's kind of their specialty. And we're going to be bringing them in. They're going to come through my educational classes, the CME classes that I teach on the Plant a Seed for Cannabis Education Tour. And we're going to do some product panels, and we're going to have a physician in to have a discussion with them. We're going to have some patients in so that they understand the different needs that deaf people have to understanding how to communicate around the use of cannabis and hemp. It's all inclusive. It is the same plant.
Yes.
And there's no sign for hemp. When you're talking about using cannabis, you're talking about smoking pot. And this is the primary sign. And it just isn't a fit for people using cannabis oil. It just isn't a fit for people using hemp oil.
Or a mother with a nasal spray.
All of these type things. And so, there's a whole lot of intricate pieces to this. And so I'm really just facilitating this. We have the nonprofit organization. This is a public and social service to do. So we're trying to raise about $10,000 to cover their expenses to get here in the next month, and bringing them in so they can go through this training and really learn and work together as a team.
How can people reach out to you about helping with that?
Yeah, they can go to signsforthetimes.org, which is a primary website set up just for this program, or they can come through myECStherapy.org, which is for the ECS Therapy Center.
So would you, right now, if somebody wants to talk about with their doctor, THC, do they like?
Yeah, they would spell it out. Well, think about talking about the cannabinoid. It's been a long time since I've taken sign, and I know the alphabet, but it takes me a minute to think about it. But think how that slows conversation. And, most people that are coming into the dispensary who are deaf or hearing impaired, what I understand is they typically text with their bud tender. That just makes the communication easier. Yeah. But that's still a process for them. Wouldn't it be nice, again, at least among their peers, and if they're working with an interpreter while they're at a doctor, in the hospital, or communicating with their family and friends, again, their deaf friends, that they have the words to be able to do that and not need to spell and text that out, but to actually hold a conversation in the way that they communicate primarily. And I think that that's important.
I wonder if there's an app. Sorry, this isn't about. I wonder if there's an app where you can like film somebody signing and it will tell you what they're saying. And if
there
not,
probably is, but there ought to be. We're going to be bringing in. We're hoping to have a sign language group from here in Colorado volunteer their time to come in and interpret for this event, because the truth is, there really isn't the language. We wanted to bring the CDI team into the MJs for MD conference, which precedes this, because it's a great conference, a lot of learning opportunities. And the real difficulty there is having someone who can interpret what's going on as it's going on live, because there are so many presentations. There's so much language. And some of it's not common to us who are, hearing.
Right. Yeah.
And so to be able to go through that and to spell those things out, that the interpreter is often going to be far behind the speaker unless they're really connected to one another. And so we're trying to get to those ways. And I hope to be a leader in that way. I mean, part of having a nonprofit is that it provides a public service, and that it helps the people that are your audience. And everyone has an endocannabinoid system, and anyone with any medical qualifying condition could be deaf. But specifically, there are qualifying conditions that are for, now I'm going to forget the name. It's a canal syndrome to the ear, and it's where the cartilage breaks down. And cannabis
not fallopian tube, eustachian.
It's the it's not the eustachian tube, but it's another piece of cartilage within the ear. And it's in my book. We can look that up while we're here.
You've written a few books.
I have, and this is the medical cannabis, the Survivor's Guide to Medical Cannabis. It is my newest book out, and I had the book release party this summer. It is the Superior Canal Descent syndrome. What it is the cartilage in the inner ear breaks down, and cannabis has a role in bone formation. Cartilage is bone. And so when people are losing their hearing, cannabis can be important to that. So isn't it important to have sign language around that? So there's so many reasons, again. And again, anyone can be a cannabis user. So,
well, I was going to ask you, how is the nonprofit deaf community in Colorado treating you? Have you reached out to them yet?
We're starting to reach out to them, and so far they understand the need. There is a need to communicate. We're reaching out to CSU and some other programs now, and hope to very shortly announce several partnerships with local communities. I'm not at liberty yet to announce any, but we're getting close. And I know there is a huge need. This is a huge void, and again, the issue is we're in cannabis. This is still a Schedule I drug. So there are not federal funds available for this type of project as there normally would be. There are not state funds available for this type of program, though there normally would be, and though there are tax dollars in this state to support that. The state doesn't yet support cannabis nonprofits doing education. That's just not happening yet. I've had the 501c3 in Colorado for almost 4 years now. And, we've been bringing it forward every year, releasing research in the past on doctor-patient communication. And this is the first big project we've taken on, and we really hope to get the industry behind us. We're hoping that in September and October, that local business owners of CBD and medical dispensaries, recreational dispensaries, hemp farms, and people who've been touched by that, who have their own businesses, will run some kind of small fundraiser designed to donate the profits to the ECS Therapy for Signs for the Times, but which shows their brand. And, I'd love to get Veedverks behind that. We talked about that the other day.
Could do this.
Because you guys have a lot of lotion to move from your shelves. And the thing
set up
is,
a discount code.
yeah. And the thing,
we'll get it going.
yeah, but the thing to this is I believe in your products, Travis. You guys have shared your products with me, but I want companies like you guys to get behind. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but $10,000, $100 at a time, I would be really thrilled with, And if people can do more, great. Do a barbecue at their dispensary or in their grocery store, and provide a few dollars tips and donations back to the ECS Therapy Center. I think most people can really get behind this. And for every partner that comes in and supports us, when we have this video glossary ready to go, we're going to share it with you so you can make it available on your websites and through your social media as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a free public service, but we've got to raise the funds to do it.
So we got to raise... You probably have to pay your bills beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, nonprofits, they need printers and electricity and
they do.
To do it.
Well, the nice thing about the ECS Therapy Center is that 100% of every donation goes to the project. Everyone is volunteering for this. No one is getting paid. I don't receive a salary. None of my board members receive a salary. Book sales and other things do support the organization. Teach classes with the Plant a Seed Tour. These things keep the organization afloat. But to do something like this and raise $10,000, it's $10,000 outside of our budget. So we are going to rely on local partners and people that, want to come in and support not just the cannabis community, but the deaf community. I mean, it's amazing to me how many people, as I've discussed this within cannabis, are touched by someone who's deaf within their family or hearing impaired. And, they're really excited to get involved. So,
well, partnerships, that's the key. One of the things that Katrina, the hurricane, taught the United States is the importance of grassroots organizations working together. And now, before it was everybody was out for themselves, and now the way you run a nonprofit is you post your partnership organizations.
Absolutely.
I tapped the table.
That's okay.
No.
We made a device
there you go.
that lights up back there when the table is tapped, but it just broke, so now it's just going off all the time.
I didn't break it.
We're having to train Julie and also Michael Miller to...
I see.
Yeah, but I think what it is with me is I'm having to wear braces, and so on the show I take the braces off, and now my hands are all happy and they want to do things.
I would like to say that we've got... Hello. Hey, so Mary, hey, thanks for joining, Corey. I'm still waiting on a call back from the sticker. Corey drives race cars. We're going to put a sticker on.
Yes.
Let's see. Post info for donations.
Oh, and I see Vicki Wilson finally on there. Hi, Vicki.
And my friend Gerald. Hello, New Orleans, mon cher. Mwah.
So, Vicki, am I right? Or are you guys doing something tonight?
That's tonight. We have a meet and greet in Windsor, and it's for Senate candidate Phil Kelly, District 13. We have it posted everywhere, and I will put it in the feed. And if you can make it tonight, that would be great. Even if he's not in your district, this man is running for Senate, and he's one of us, and we need to support him and get him in there. And, I like his open door policy. I've been making him very angry, telling him patient stories, and he's ready to fight for us.
Good. I'd love to meet him. I don't know if I'll make it tonight or not, but good work.
We're going to keep bringing him to stuff.
Yeah.
He's
great.
His opponent is in charge of the state Senate kill committee that may or may not have shot down PTSD however many times. I don't know how long he's been in
4
office,
or 5,
but we need to replace that guy with a a medical patient. That would be a wonderful opportunity to impact this state.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're behind it.
He's treating his Agent Orange issues with cannabis.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've talked to a lot of people a lot of former Vietnam War veterans who are treating their Agent Orange issues with cannabis. Yeah, absolutely.
And that was, I am so glad I got to participate in getting PTSD added.
Oh, it was phenomenal here. I was glad to do that too. In New Mexico, I was in New Mexico as a patient when they tried to remove PTSD as a qualifying condition, and was the only state that had it at the time. And so I was instrumental with other people in helping bring together hundreds of patients to tell their story. And that's when I started to understand how broad post-traumatic stress is, because at that time in New Mexico, more than 50% of the patients within the state that required 2 doctors' recommendations qualified under post-traumatic stress. And it was for things like childhood trauma, car accident trauma, rape, so many things besides, we always think of our war veterans, and it's absolutely, every one of them tells me, it was life-changing for them in some way. And again, from Vietnam forward, I've got a lot of testimonies there too. But just in the general population, I did not realize how prolific post-traumatic stress was, and that led me to do a lot more research, and it really is amazing. And while we have 22 veterans a day who die because of post-traumatic stress and suicide, we don't have those kind of statistics on a population basis, on a larger population basis. We do know 151 people die every day of pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Now, are they intentional or unintentional overdoses? And then you got to add other things on top of that. It's really a shame where our medical system has gotten us with this particular condition.
Well, this is going to lead us into a terpene discussion, which we at Veedverks, we love terpene discussions any day of the week.
Me too.
But my cousin, I can't say which state, but one of the states that's fighting, is a psychiatrist for the Veterans Organization. And of course, with me being so loud and proud, he was, he reached out to me, and I was so glad he did, because he was like, when I went to school, and what we are taught and what we're going by is cannabis causes anxiety. And that was an open door for me to explain the difference, and to get into terpenes. And his mother happens to use essential oil. So it was something he understood, and it's opening that door of conversation. And we were talking earlier about mercy. And the effects of that, and pining, and all of that.
No, there can be absolutely a lot of anxiety around some of the limonene and the pinene, alpha pinene, which I love.
I do too.
As some people just throws them way off.
Golden goat. That's what alpha pinene smells like. That's golden goat. Golden goat's
It's
awesome.
one of my favorites.
It's the best thing that Topeka, Kansas ever invented.
Oh, did Topeka invent that?
Supposedly.
No, hats off to
I care
Topeka.
enough about that strain to learn about where it came from.
Hats off to you.
Yeah.
So,
I know what I'm doing next year for your birthday.
There you go. I do love golden goat. And I'm a huge, pinene is one of the things that I drift to. Myrcene, again, is one of those other things. And we were talking a little earlier, just about a year ago, it's only been slightly more than a year, that the research came out from Ethan Russo that really showed that the only difference between indica and sativa is not the THC and CBD, it is the terpenes. And it's those things, the limonene and the pinenes and some of the others that move things to sativa. Myrcene, linalool, which is like lavender, some of these other things move things towards indica. And I knew myrcene was one of the key things for me at times, particularly for pain and particularly in the evening. But, I can do some in the morning. I just can't do too much. And I know that from watching my terpene profiles, but I didn't realize the major significance. I came to understand that significance when I got some terpenes that were water soluble that had from a company called True Terpenes. And they were at the Cannabis Science Conference in Portland last year, and they gave me a bunch of little samples. And I had several of myrcene. And I had a veteran who was moving to Colorado because he was taking a civilian police job on an Air Force base. And he needed to drug test within just a couple days of this. And so he was like, I can't use THC at all. And I said, well, you might want to take some of this myrcene and put it in a diffuser. And I explained kind of the diffusing process because that's how they had shown it there. And he opened the bottle and he kind of shook it on his fingers and he rubbed it on his gums. And I went, oh. And he put the lid on. He goes, I don't know, it doesn't taste too bad. It doesn't have much of a smell. And he kind of walked out my back door and he went outside to have a cigarette. And when he walked back in my door, he looked like a completely different person. He no longer had that anxiety-ridden face. He was happy, and he was like, you've just changed my life. What was that again? And I gave him the bottle, and he's now buying some. He's using it as a diffuser as he sleeps at night, and he's adding just 2 drops to now a nicotine vaporizer because he's trying to quit smoking cigarettes. Right. And he's finding that works sufficiently for him, and he has a majority of his post-traumatic stress under control. And that's simply from using terpenes because he's disallowed from testing positive for THC. So, you know, you have those things. But as you mentioned that, and we're talking about it and how these anxiety issues, there's also a percentage of the population that is just THC sensitive. Even if you give them a choline supplement to go along with it, they still very low doses. They tend to have a lot of anxiety. And it typically is THC driven and not terpene driven because we are really working with them with indica strains and things like that. Right. Well, just this year, new research has shown that genetically, where on the same gene that is tested to see if you have celiac or not, or if you're a non-celiac person, that if you're that person that carries that gene that you could have celiac, you may not have it now, but you have a propensity to have it. You may be one of those THC sensitive people. And that's the people that should really start with hemp oils. Right. Because they're going to find that they're much more comfortable for them. And that very small amount of THC is enough for them because they have this particular genetic difference. I've been wondering what it is. I couldn't explain it. I just knew there was this percentage of the population. Almost 10%, I would say. And that's a total guesstimate. You can't, quote me on that scientifically, but about 10% of the people I see are those. And I've always been kind of really curious about that. And I really feel bad for them because THC is such a pleasure to me. I miss the euphoria I got in the beginning. And
yeah, mine's gone too.
I love traveling like I do because every time I come home to Colorado with the altitude, I get it for a few days. I don't get much, but every time I'll dab or something, I'll have a minute or two where I have a really nice, like, oh, there it is. Yeah. Oh, I like that. And it's just a little further step back from my pain issues and my health issues. And I'm going to say mostly stress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel you with stress.
Yeah. It's that, and it's really nice. I don't drink, or anything like that. So it is really nice to once in a while get have an awe moment.
Yeah, when you are a medical patient and you use cannabis daily and you use it purposefully, you don't get high. That's why they're not going to they're going to have a real hard time figuring out how to throw people in jail for DUI
DUI should be about impairment. Let's always keep that straight anyway. Yeah. It should be about impairment. And you can be impaired on over-the-counter medication.
Yes.
People have been even cited and arrested for being impaired on pharmaceuticals. And without a prescription, you're definitely a liability if you're on pharmaceuticals. Alcohol, as we know, is horrible. What's interesting in the research around cannabis drivers, several years ago, France did 3 studies, and they looked at drunk drivers who also used cannabis, and cannabis users. And drunk drivers were cursed the worst because they don't have any boundaries. They don't know if they're impaired or not. The cannabis drivers were the safest. What they tended to do was miss their exit. They missed their cues on the road. And we know that. Most people are like, that was my exit. But they safely went about going about the route and coming back to where they needed to go. They didn't have an unsafe incident on the road. When they combined alcohol and cannabis, there was sometimes unsafe incidents on the road with that combination, but they were far less than with alcohol alone. And it was a significant difference. And it's that cannabis is mediating it and mediating the things that alcohol causes, the more aggressive driving, the not having boundaries, not having really any depth perception.
The last time you were high and you were on
people who are higher driving are don't get road rage, and they're super cautious.
Whatever. We're all just part of one collective consciousness. Right. It's okay. You can cut in front of me. You're probably having a bad day.
Oh yeah. You know,
Maybe
since
your
I've
turn
become a
signal's
patient, I am a much less aggressive driver. I'm much, and it is because I'm medicated when I drive. I'm not high, but I am medicated when I drive. And I'm a much more courteous driver. I don't get nearly as angry. I don't cuss nearly as much in the car as I used to. We could ask my son from childhood to now, which is the better, because I just used to cuss like a sailor. I hate everybody. It made me angry.
Cannabis helps you, number one, be in the moment, which I think helps with driving.
I think so too. You've got to be.
It also allows you to experience empathy in ways that perhaps you wouldn't have experienced them, and honestly, put your. I joke about it, but honestly, I see somebody, I'm like, they're driving on a little donut tire. They're already having a crappy day.
I've been talking about wanting to do an empathy study.
Really?
Because there have been some studies that have looked at things like Tylenol and other things, and they show they produce a lack of empathy taken over the long term. Why? There's CB1 receptor blocker, is my opinion on that, but that's not scientifically proven.
It's going to be.
I mean, it's scientifically proven there's CB1 receptor blocker, but that's your bliss system. So they haven't connected. That's why they have the lack of empathy. I tried to connect it for their researchers, and they kind of poo-pooed me. So I would now like to do what they're doing with people right before they start cannabis therapy and after at different intervals, because I've met people who are not currently using cannabis, but are getting ready to begin using cannabis because they're deathly ill. I would like to track their empathy from there to when, again, a few months later, it changes. I see huge changes in people. I also see them become much more cognizant around their diet, where they weren't as much before. There are a lot of trends that, again, when you talk to people all over the country, all over the world, and you hear similar stories and you see the same thing over and over and over, you really want to dig into them more. And I really do think cannabis helping, again, that CB1 receptor system having a role in serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, all things that have a production in either our connection with others or empathy in some way, I think is really important.
You touched on something that I've been curious about. Is metabolism. Why is it once you start taking cannabis as a medicine or as a vitamin, like I take mainly CBD during the day and, have high concentration at night. But what I'm noticing in myself and other people is it regulating my blood sugars.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have the sugar cravings. I don't have the carbohydrate craving. And I
That's
immediately dropped, I think, like 15, 20 pounds, just without even trying.
I've had people move here who weighed well over 300 pounds when they moved here, and I saw them and talked to them, and I didn't see them again maybe for 6, 8 months, 9 months, a year, because they lived in, hours away from me, but in Colorado. And I'm shocked because they've dropped 100 pounds. Whoa, what happened? And they're like, I don't know. I moved here, I started doing these things, and the weight just seemed to come off. But then as you get to talking to them, they have made some conscious decisions to not eat as much processed food, to eat more real food. I just had I had someone ask me the other day what type of food I eat. It was a cannabis doctor too, so that makes more sense. But who asked me, tell me about the type of food you eat. And I go, I only eat real things. He just laughed. He goes, oh, well then you're fine. But it is this thing of, processed foods are so easy to sneak in, and when you're sick and they're convenient and all these things, and you don't realize how bad those things are for you. And getting good nutrition is really important to the body, good sleep and all these things. But it does become this thing of, again, I think it's, again, part of just the consciousness raising. And I always I haven't told this story in a really long time, but I met with a woman when I was really new as a patient in New Mexico. They knew I was a PhD student. I wasn't running a nonprofit. I was just a person. But I would been helping with a clinic to make some extra money, and a cannabis clinic had come to this little town out in Roswell. And this lady's family had brought her to the clinic, and they had waited with her several hours for her to fill out paperwork and then get her next appointment with the cannabis doctor, because her main doctor told her, you need to do this, which was great. But she was really concerned, and she sat down with me and told me that her husband was going to grow her marijuana, and they weren't going to tell anybody in their shed. You know, they were going to grow it in their shed. They weren't going to tell anybody at their church. And she was a devoutly Christian woman. You could tell when you met her. And as was the rest of her family. And they just weren't going to tell anybody about this until they found out if it worked. And I said, well, you're going to have to wait another 4 or 5 months till you have plants and medicine and you make your tincture. I live in Albuquerque. We're both patients. You have a card now. I have a card. I could pick some up in Albuquerque. We're going to be back here in 2 weeks, and you can reimburse me for it. That's perfectly legal within this state. Great idea. So in the meantime, her daughter called me, and her daughter was about my age. And we made an arrangement that I would meet with them before the clinic, and we would have tea at their house, because what we were going to do is put the tincture in her hot tea, and we were going to sit and drink a cup of hot tea, because they wanted somebody there who knew what to expect. She was scared. So I sat around the table with them, a couple drops in her tea, none in her daughter's, more in mine. And we started to drink tea, and we started to talk, and she was about halfway through that cup of tea. And she just looked at me, and she broke out this big grin and smiled. She goes, you know something? I think I found what it means to be high right now. I think I've had enough, and I feel high, but I feel so good. And I haven't felt good. She looks around, she goes, maybe in a couple of decades. But right now in this moment, I feel good. And she goes, you know, there's been times when I was like lost in Tulsa, or some town. I can't remember what she named. She's not from Oklahoma, but you know, from this town. And she was like, she's from New Mexico. She was like, I got lost, and I went to the convenience store. I was going to ask somebody directions, and I saw these kids, and they had the reddest eyes, and I knew they were high, and it scared me, and I ran away from them. She goes, if I'd have bought them some cookies and a Coke and asked them directions, they'd have been so happy to help me. And I go, they'd have been happy without the cookies and Coke, hon. And she started laughing. She goes, this is not what I thought it was. This is not what I've been told being high was. That moment really struck me, because I continue to see so many people who are scared. And I'm fearful a few of them have that experience where, again, they're too THC sensitive. But for the majority of people, that little bit and starting comfortably is what's most important. And then get rid of the myths and move on, you know, and find your health. And she has passed, but she lived many years beyond what she expected, and her cancer was in remission, which is why she had started. And she had been out of options and put on hospice care. So this was a much different scenario for her children. Rather than to lose her in hospice within a couple months, they had a couple of years they got to spend with her, and have times where they mentioned she was just hilarious when she started using cannabis. She had developed a great sense of humor, and she told everyone in her church, and within 2 weeks of her first dose, asked me to come and speak to her church, because she knew it was that important. And, you know, as it says, God makes all the seed-bearing plants. It wasn't hard for her church to get behind her.
Tell you, we got a lot of regularly church-going folks who are our regular clients as well. It's there's nothing un-Christian about cannabis whatsoever. In fact,
No, I
it
think
might be
the Christian thing to do.
It might be the Christian thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, if they just knew all of the original translations, they would know.
They would know that it was the Christian thing to
that
do.
this is a really, really Christian
Well,
thing
if
to
you
do.
wonder why people would wander around 40 days in the desert, rub a bunch of cannabis oil in your head, put a big wrap around it, and go out in the sun, you're going to be higher than a kite in a short amount of time. And you're going to wander around very happily and aimlessly.
Yeah, it's cannabis is the only thing that I think this country can agree upon. I keep saying it every.
The people do. Our politicians do not.
94% in favor of med, 64% in favor of adult use. Has probably gone up on both counts.
In my home state of Oklahoma, we've just passed state question 788.
Semi-congratulations.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But the thing is, in Norman, Oklahoma, which is where OU is, but beyond that, 80% of their voters voted yes. In that one area, in that one county, 80% of the voters of that county voted yes. That's a conservative little county. And they voted yes. Why? Because now when I go home, people want to come talk to me because they are now touched by it from somebody they know. It wasn't that way 5 years ago. Now somebody has heard somebody's story of their grandchild or their mother or someone in their family that came to Colorado. And it's unfortunate, but I know that there are thousands of people that have come from Oklahoma to Colorado. American cannabis refugees. Amy's family is one of them. And while I'm really proud of the work she's doing here, it's a shame that she had to do that with her family, with a disabled child, and that so many others did the same. Their kids' lives are, justification enough for that. And certainly the improvement has validated their choice many times over. But again, to have to go through that as a family, it's difficult.
Yeah, Colorado's an expensive state, and especially if you're coming from like a Midwestern type of state, cost of living's way higher. Houses cost more, everything costs more.
And people get here and they think cannabis, they'll be able to afford it. And with everything else, they often can't. And via the ECS Therapy Center, we've given away more than $1 million retail products over the last 4 years to people. That's not something that we do primarily, but we get so many requests through, people call and make appointments to have a peer educator walk through and help them develop a therapy plan. And so many of those people just don't have access. And they're here in Colorado. And it's not that they maybe even couldn't get it, though it's difficult. I've had somebody on a mission recently who can afford the medicine and cannot find within 3 counties an indica-based oil right now for a decent price. He can find a lot of sativa. He doesn't need sativa. But, even, 4 years ago for sure, finding a one-to-one which is what we typically provide people, was extremely difficult. And, we often provided oil for families that moved here with children because they just couldn't afford it.
1-to-1 means 1 part THC to 1 part CBD in the overall mix. It matters.
It does.
How much you have of each thing.
Right. There's a lot of those stories, though.
There's so many.
With my youngest son just moving here, and he's got the Keppra stories, and so excited. And
the what?
The Keppra.
Keppra makes kids angry and aggressive. I can't tell you how many parents are they're so tired of Keppra.
It's crazy. He's 21, but he dropped out of college because of Keppra, and he was studying plant diseases, and I'm like, it was almost like predestined for him to come out here, and I'm so excited to get him back. And I'd like to see a study done with adults with epilepsy, because he's got a more severe case than I do, but because there's so many different forms of epilepsy.
Yep.
And
most are unknown what you actually really have going on.
Yeah. Oh, I've been hospitalized twice to try to make me have seizures just to figure out why, But, and that's another thing, the medical care for that out here. I've had tests, I have 5 children. All of them have a neurological something. I've been to a lot of doctors and seen a lot of tests run. I have never seen the level of care neurologically that I've seen here.
Oh, good.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's exciting that they're opening their minds, like the one at the University of Colorado that I go to. She's from Nepal. And when I started talking to her about cannabis, she goes, "It's okay, baby." She goes, "It's my culture."
Yeah.
She goes, "I got you."
Well, I've met several of the researchers at the International Cannabinoid Research Society. They are coming in and presenting papers. They are collecting data here. My big thing is I go in and I speak to a lot of clinical offices. I've been to Clinica in Boulder. I've been to Boulder Hospital. I've been to Methodist Hospital in Peoria, Illinois. Just lots of clinics and hospitals at different times. And often the doctors there can't recommend cannabis.
Right.
And I'm not there to talk to them about recommendation. I'm there to explain to them that every human has an endocannabinoid system and give them some basic facts about that, and to encourage them to listen to their patients and document their progress, because the one thing that I guarantee will happen is their pharmaceutical needs will change.
Right.
And that's on them. And that wakes them up. And study after study, I have a whole list of studies that show cannabis taken a small dose, 5 milligrams, along with
Of THC.
Along with a painkiller, will help it work up to 900% better. 900% better. Meaning what? You need much less of the painkiller. Right. And we see this observationally time and time again with people. I often start people who are trying to wean from opiates and painkillers. I'm like, when you're at that point, you feel like you really need it. Hopefully you're using cannabis before, but if you're not, sit yourself down, load that pipe, use that tincture if you're not a smoker, dab if that's what you do, whatever it is you do. And you can I want you to take the pain pill out and set it there. And I want you to set a timer for 5 minutes. And do those things you do with cannabis, because you can wait 5 more minutes. And when that buzzer dings, if you still need to take the pain pill, take it. If you don't, drop it in a jar. And they'll bring you back jars of just multicolored pills that are like, I didn't take these. I didn't take these. That's empowerment. Yeah. And the main thing is now their health is better. They're feeling better. They're more active. Their bowels are working better. Their stomach feels better. They're getting better uptake from the food they're eating. Because even if they're eating a healthy diet and they're using a lot of opiates, studies show opiates block your ability to uptake things like that.
Well, and then pain causes high blood pressure.
And we've all seen Train Spotting too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, it's all of these factors that combine. I'm looking to document and write a book about how people get to cannabis. The failures of the medical system that bring them here, because I know when somebody comes to see me for the first time and they walk in with a Walmart bag, they didn't bring goodies for us to share. Those are pill bottles, and they're taking every single one of them. That's what they're being currently prescribed, and I'm not a medical professional. I help them they help me sort out what's what. I send them to some nurses for advice and ask them to talk to their doctor and insist that he document their cannabis use, because their pharmaceutical needs are going to change. And some do and some don't. Again, it's still this choice. I still make a choice when I see a new doctor. Am I going to tell them I use cannabis or not? I
didn't tell my dentist, and he gave me a whole bunch of crap about it. And so I ended up giving him an earful of, I told him the whole journey that I've told here before about just being prescribed an ever-increasing just pill load. And what that did to me, and the fact that, what, man, the appointment was like at 8:30, and he thought I was like an addict or something like that.
Well, and that becomes the thing.
I'm like, man,
are you an addict when you take your prescription drug every day?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you an addict when you take Tylenol every day? Right. Are you an addict? But the key to this is real key is when you eat every day, because cannabis is food. Right. It's nutrition. It stores in your fat cells as an essential nutrient out of food. And that is the real key. That's the difference here. Is we're not talking about synthetics. We're talking about plant-based food. And if we all were eating this in our diet regularly, and the raw plant, we wouldn't have these illnesses. And we wouldn't get high when we smoked a joint, so nobody'd really care about that, because we'd be loaded with cannabinoids. And it was the #1 agricultural crop in 1937 across the globe.
I bet it will be in 2025 again.
I'm hoping by the end of my lifetime for sure. Yeah, that it hits that again.
How do you feel? I have replaced hemp oil instead of fish oil. For my omegas, because it's so rich.
It's complete. It's more complete. It's more complete than fish oil. Yeah. And it smells so much better, and it tastes better, and yes, absolutely, so many people have.
And a lot of people don't realize, before you go and have dental work or minor surgeries, they want you to get off your fish oils, because they are blood thinners. Yep. And what people don't realize, if you're taking, the oils and the tinctures, that's a blood thinner. And you may, we're talking about not needing your prescriptions. Well, that's one you may not need, and that could be dangerous.
Well, and the thing is, the cannabis is not a blood thinner; it's a vasodilator.
There you go.
So it also helps you have better blood flow, but in a very different way than a blood thinner.
When it's in
That
olive
includes
oil.
topicals too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, it absolutely
increase
does.
in blood
Your
flow.
skin's your number one organ, your largest organ of the whole body. And I always tell the story. I poo-poo topicals when I was first told about them. Like, you can't tell me that'll work. And I put it on my shoulder, and my shoulder didn't hurt. A few minutes later, I was like, hold on, I need to think about that. And then that night, I slept through the night for the first time in 4 years. I had a full night's sleep, and that totally changed my health. And it was like, and I didn't hit the bowl I had loaded that night. I just used topical.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Topical's the main thing. It's why I'm on charges in Oklahoma. I had 4 containers of topical with me because I had been in fibro flares. It has less than 1% of the whole thing is cannabis, but it tests positive for THC, so 4 ounces apiece.
That ain't right.
I know. So I'm fighting it. I'm pushing through court. I go back in October, so...
October when? Before the
26th. October
26th.
26th, Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma. Yeah.
We need to
Targeted
get loud
stop.
about that too.
Yeah, targeted stop. That kind of stuff. And so it's that thing. We're in a unique time and place in history. Nobody has ever witnessed an 80-year prohibition being lifted. So much is, in play in places like Oklahoma, Colorado, well, really all over the world. So much is in play. And again,
Kansas next year.
Kansas
crop
next
duster,
year.
hemp maize, Veedverks.
I'm starting a hemp farm in Oklahoma too. Nelson Organics.
Really?
Look for
How many-
that with my brother.
You gonna grow outdoors?
Outdoor grows, yeah.
Well, congratulations.
I'm
That's
excited.
awesome.
I'm
You
excited.
gonna grow cannabinoid crops, or are you gonna grow fiber?
We're
or
growing for
seeds?
medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to grow for medicine. So at least initially, we may change and do some other things. The infrastructure's not there for a lot of the other things yet, but it's coming. And I think once those things do, we may end up growing some for medicine and some for more crops. We're going to grow large.
Good.
Good. That's exciting.
I want to plant it with the crop duster.
That'd be great.
Seriously, you got to set the.
You might as well use the
set
crop duster
high
for
but-
something good.
High
right?
but achievable goals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use crop dusters to plant seeds as well.
I used to go, I can't remember what they call them, that you out behind your tractor, we used to fill a thing with seed, and I just drive back and forth, and it would just, as it rotated, it would seed, And I used to do that as a kid, like a 12 years old, pushed up on a phone book. Back and forth. That was my job for the afternoon.
That's what I can't wait until flying over the Midwest. Those you can look down at those big squares and think like those big squares, those square miles, like that's hemp, that's hemp, that's hemp.
Oh, I drove through Kansas last year. I have some great pictures. I think I posted them on Facebook of me standing in the middle of a hemp thing, and I look terrible because I'm in nothing but a tie-dye dress because it's like 110 degrees and I'm about to die. And we're driving this back road because we have the camper. We were going between 2 highways and we were just in the middle of nowhere. And we had finally got to the point we'd go north a little bit and then we just go west a little bit. We didn't even know where we were. And all of a sudden I'm like, stop with my partner. I'm like, stop. And I get out, I go, there's hemp here. And I open the door right into a huge plant. And he was like, man, you couldn't have called that better. I'm like, it's still feral here.
Yeah.
So I collected the seed. I
Good.
collected
That's
seed
smart.
from there.
There's your business. Your business idea.
I know. I
of the
just
day is
admitted to a federal
strain hunter.
felony, though.
Strain
You do
hunter.
realize that.
Yeah, but all you guys in Kansas that have your fields with the ditchweed, the K-weed growing in it, that stuff hasn't been planted there intentionally since I guess 1942.
1942 to 44,
When
all
they-
throughout the Midwest. I've
Victory,
gathered seed in
Hemp for
Illinois.
Victory.
Yep.
And it survived all of that. It survived the 70s when there wasn't a drop of rain, like 77 or whatever fell in Kansas. Kind of like this year. It survived all of that nastiness. That's some really well suited. That's hardy seed for Kansas.
Well,
so,
and it should be great for, again, making rope or clothing or some of these things. It'll be interesting to see what it has. I collected seed in Illinois when I was out there because, again, I get big hemp for Victory State. I know people that have collected in Oklahoma and other places. We're hoping to start growing those and finding out what are they.
Yeah.
We really don't know because the federal seed banks were they'd taken the hemp right out. It was, again, an extinguished crop.
Huh.
So you remember, I mean, I remember growing up in Oklahoma, even up near the Kansas border, where, you know, they'd come in and all of a sudden the feds would come through one time and they just burn out a whole area. And it was because it was all feral, and it was feral hemp. It wasn't even good for medicine, but, you know, they'd come into these big places
or was it?
It
could.
And that's kind of the key.
You might go out to Kansas and find some seed that's growing like.
So I went back to some of these same areas, and I've been
13% CBD.
I'm getting ready to go back to Oklahoma at the end of October, and that's the end of the season. All that seed should be there. I should still be able to find it, though it's late in the season. But I'm hoping to go through and go back to some of the places I knew as a kid and see if we can't find some that survived and see what it is, because now I have a right to do that in the state of Oklahoma as a business owner who's licensing under the Hemp Project. You know, I'm not yet licensed, but I will be shortly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. Things are changing. Things are changing. And it's that thing. If you'd ever asked me, was I going to farm hemp, I'd have been like, you're crazy. My brother asked me, and that he wanted to do it. I almost cried. He was like, I've watched what you do. I've been watching. I've been listening. If we're going to do something, I'd like to finally do something first in my life and get in there early. And I'm like, let's do it. That was enough for me, that he's been listening and he's ready to go, because he's a really conservative man, but he knows the importance and he's seen it. And again, now he knows people, it's touched their lives. And
Like, that's happened to me a little bit too. You know, people that really didn't say anything to me when I came out of the cannabis closet and made the decisions that I made. And now I get messages every week, you know, hey, Julie, do you know of da 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 da, or where do I go to? And so it's, you know, and I don't hold any grudges. I'll tell everybody, you know, if you judged me before on it, you're forgiven. Come ask me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Well, my background again is in social science and integral theory, and one of the developmental pieces with integral theory is, you know, you really can't see something that's above your level. Once you understand this, and then you look back, you're like, why didn't I know that before?
Right.
I don't know why I wasn't listening to people and blah, blah. You couldn't have. You didn't have that ability, but for some reason something changed within you that you were able to listen and absorb it and decide, make a new decision.
Right.
And that's always appropriate. You can't judge somebody who just can't help it.
Right. You know?
And we have very core beliefs that are cultural, and having been brought up in the United States between 1963 and now, I'm going to say there's deeply ingrained things that even come out of the most staunch advocates' mouths that I'm sometimes shocked by. And I always use the example of the first time I saw a 12-year-old hit a vapor pen. I about flipped. And I'm like, why isn't he using his oil?
Yeah.
It's a bad visual. But here's a little boy for 2 years that's been using oil, and he has tiny breakout seizures. And one night when he has an actual seizure, his dad just hands him his vapor pen. It's the fastest thing he can do. And he comes right out of it, and he says to his dad, he can verbally describe how that really helped him. And so as soon as they start letting him vaporize, hit one hit, morning, afternoon, and evening, he had no more breakout seizures. So that 95% control they got went to almost 100%. Now, I never say 100%, but he is at a 99.9% seizure control.
That's amazing.
Being able to do that. He's now 14. Once I thought, I'm like, okay, so it's harmless. It's already his medicine. It's already in his system. It's just a different delivery method. If you gave him it through a nebulizer, I wouldn't have had an issue.
Right.
So why am I freaking out? I had to check myself. Now, when I talk to parents of young teenagers with seizure disorders, I say, please don't rule out using a vapor pen. I know that's not where you want to start, but it's almost like talking to old men with COPD.
Right.
I'm not going to smoke anything. Well, but a vapor pen might help you. It's a bronchial dilator, and taking it that way could be helpful. Nope. And then they come to an event or two, and they see another old man with a vapor pen. Then they try it and they realize that's so much better than what they do, than the inhalers that they use. And they immediately gravitate towards it. But they had to learn that.
Right.
Well, it's not shocking to see an old man with a vape pen, but it is a 12-year-old boy. But it's a valid delivery method. And it has no nicotine. It's very low in THC, actually. So how is that a bad thing?
Right.
But that I had to stop and I had to check myself. And I am a very strong advocate.
Well, what's the difference in that? I mean, giving them that or in a nasal spray.
I agree.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Or we have the asthma inhaler.
Agreed. But
kind
you just
now.
said, but as Travis said, ooh, that's not a good picture when I first
we
said
make,
it.
we
And
make
you're
vape
right.
pens. I never want to see a 12-year-old. But now when you frame it like that.
But when you frame it, if they were
Like-
using it, it'd be fine, but you're not going to advertise with it.
No.
Right.
And I don't blame you.
Yeah.
And because that's such a shocking thing. And I can only imagine what someone like my mother, a retired school teacher, would think if she saw that initially. You have to think yourself through it. We have a lot of prejudice because of how we were raised, the things we've learned. This wasn't a new product and here's a new delivery method. If a new synthetic came out and that was the delivery method, we go, well, that's what the doctor prescribed him, right?
Right.
Okay, so we have to look at that and think about that. Now, I'm not advocating that all children should be vaporizing, don't get me there. But I think that was the parents' decision on how to deliver that medication that they are legally able to give to their child. And they found a way to get him 99.9% seizure free. Who am I to judge? And, I actually gave her huge kudos for being one of the strongest moms I'd ever talked to, because I said, I don't know if I'd have had the courage to do that with my kids.
Right.
That was a courageous move, actually.
Yeah.
It is.
And so, we're all pioneering from different vantage points.
If you put it into like an Advair type of,
Atomized.
they have the
That's
inhalers and stuff.
acceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
It's just
acceptable.
it's kind of the visual of it.
It is the visual of it, and it is the thought of it, but it is it all is all those things. Again, I knew that you would have a reaction. Everyone does when I mention that particular story. But it is that thing of no matter what, deep within us, we've been raised in prohibition. And we have to check those things all the time. And sometimes we maybe people that very much agree with and advocate for this plant that just would absolutely agree. Zero people under the age of 18 or 21 should vaporize. They're entitled to that belief. I'm only here to report observational evidence.
Well, and there's other transdermal patches and
Well, and he was already using other things. And he was, again, he'd had huge successes.
But there's something.
But there was something
inhaling
again. He was out. He was
that's
away from home when he had a
symptomatic.
seizure. The only thing his dad had on him was his own vapor pen.
Yeah.
And because again, this is one of the things when I have a child when someone comes to me for counseling on a child, I look right at both parents and say, "So, did you register yourself as a patient? No. Why not? You don't have health issues? Let's talk about your stress level. Let's talk about how well you sleep." Let's talk about some things. And pretty soon they're like, now that you mention it. And what I do find is a lot of dispensaries, they give free gifts, like a free pre-roll if you get 5 edibles today, or it's just with your thing in today. It's the parents who keep those because, their kids are too young to be smoking that pre-roll. That's absolutely true.
We're changing perceptions.
But,
I think everybody should get their grandma weed for Christmas.
I agree.
That's like the nicest thing
You
that
have
you
a whole
could do.
shelf full of lotion. This is where they should start. And that would,
Start with
again,
the
you're going to
lotion.
give a discount
trust me,
code.
we are.
And we're going to raise funds for Science for
Yeah,
Time.
we'll do
what's
a
that
discount code.
But
Let's do
everyone's grandmother should try this lotion for Christmas. Seniors, I start with a topical because you don't have any head issue. But you get an immediate effect from a body perspective. And I can't tell you one person I've ever met over the age of 70 whose hands, feet, neck, something didn't hurt on their body.
knees.
Knees. I mean, all these things. And I always talk about when we did the 2013 fair in Colorado, we were the first educational booth to be there. And I would stand there with salve in my hand all day, and little ladies, little crooked hands, and they'd give me the stink eye, and I'd give them they barely touch it and rub some on a little knuckle. And they'd no more go around, and they'd come right back. Where do you get that? And can I have more? Because that was the only place in their hand that didn't hurt. And they suddenly realized how much the rest hurt. And they'd rub it on their hands, and I'd give them instructions on what they needed to do so that they could get a recommendation and have access to. Now we're so fortunate to have recreational, because now you can take that same person, they can immediately go buy it. And when they get a result, then they can go through that medical process if they choose.
I wanted to tell you something. You know, we were at NOCO, not at the hemp.
Are we, could anybody give us a thumbs up if we're still, it looks like we're lagging. It looks like we lost our internet here.
Oh.
So, in fact.
Disconnected, reconnecting. We dropped somewhere.
Well, it was just now. I think the whole internet went down. Yeah, I lost my whole internet. We're still recording though, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And we will eventually
The
upload this
craziest
elsewhere.
thing, you know, I go to other places
So.
and everybody has pains somewhere. We were at NOCO with all these hemp farmers who eat it and get it. I had a hard time finding somebody hurting,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Because they're eating it, they're putting it on their body,
You're right.
they're
You're right.
wearing it, they're, you know, it's all consuming.
Yeah.
Those hemp farmers didn't have the arthritis.
I love going into a cannabis event full of people in overalls. It's become my favorite thing, and it's because of the hemp combination now.
Right.
I just came from an event in Oklahoma, and 3 or 4 men came up to me, and it could have been family, you know. They looked enough like my uncles, and they had their overalls on, the same boots, and if they aren't going to be able to farm 500 acres, well, then it just ain't worth their time. And I'm like,
Right.
well, I love you. You can adopt me now. And it is this thing of, you know, starting to understand. But I always have the best discussions with the farmers. They understand plants. They do. And they're very excited about this. And those that have been out here farming for a little bit, their land is really improving and their crops are just getting better and better.
Right. We had a wonderful organic farmer on last week, you know, and we were talking about that, and just what hemp does to the soil itself, you know, and how it, you know, gets back that, I don't know, what do you want to call it, substance?
Well, it's a bioremediator. So,
There
it,
you
you
go.
know, it cleans the soil.
Yeah. Well, and you have less erosion issues too, because it holds on to the soil.
It
and,
does.
you know, what you can get per acre, you know, depending on how you're growing it, whether you're growing it for fiber or whether, you know, CBD. And there's just so many exciting opportunities. What I'm hoping happens is, I know during the Obama administration, his first session, he did a lot of green energy initiatives, a lot of green jobs, you know, bringing in solar and wind. Well, here we are with hemp, and everybody's wanting to grow hemp, but there isn't a whole lot of manufacturing.
That's it.
So
We've got to bring in the
my mind,
infrastructure.
I'm thinking green energy jobs, block grants. And if this is going to, you know, if we go into the Farm Bill and this is any other agricultural crop, well, then by gosh, any other agricultural crop has incentive programs for manufacturing
And subsidies.
Yes, and
And
subsidies.
crop insurance.
Yes, yes.
All these things should be
And
coming.
you don't have to buy your seeds from Monsanto, and you don't have to sign a 90-page contract, because guess what? You can go plant a seed crop of hemp right now. I mean, in the right states.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
Kansas next year, Oklahoma this year already? Or
Yeah.
did,
Well,
they
it
passed
was
it this
approved
year.
this year. Nobody
Right,
could
so,
get it
yeah,
plants in the
Kansas is
ground in
way behind.
time.
No.
You know,
No.
to have a decent crop this
Yeah.
year. So next year we're setting our sights on in the ground in April.
So you're not beholden to the man. You can grow a seed crop. You can remediate your land. And you can also, I don't know what the most expensive, like Wonder Bread you can make out of an acre of wheat. If you're growing wheat on that land right now, I don't know what the end value, what's the maximum value you could create out of that land.
I don't know either, but
for hemp,
hemp's more.
it's a lot more. You can make a whole lot of vape cartridges based on an acre of hemp.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and they've got such wonderful strains now. I don't know if you try some of these, like that cherry wine.
Cherry wine's my fave.
They are so delicious, and again, outside of the United States, most Europeans and stuff like that, they like the low THC. They prefer smoking that, and for a lot of people, it's very relaxing. And so there are people now starting to export. They can get DEA licensed to import-export hemp, and we need to be doing more of that. We need to. Canada's leading in that. We don't want them to lead in that. We want to lead in that. Individual farmers versus a nationalized program.
Right.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
And we're getting there. Oh, it's growing.
There.
Everywhere I go, the farmers are talking about it.
There are plenty of setbacks and plenty of stressful days and plenty of things I see posted on Facebook that looks like the sky's falling. But after years of doing this now, I really do feel like we are over the hump and that we are winning.
Oh, we've got the momentum now. We have, the momentum just keeps picking up, and we've definitely got momentum now.
Yeah. Well, our internet is blown up, and it's really distressful to me. But so I'm going to.
We should have it back now.
Oh,
really?
It's working.
Oh. Maybe we just can't see it, but.
Well, they may have disconnected too, because
we'll see. But I'm recording it. I've been uploading previous shows now to YouTube.
I saw that you were doing that.
Yeah, I haven't put titles or anything on them, but we will do this too and promote it.
And share it over to my pages, and
I will do that.
It out.
Yeah, but thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To talk to us. Fun. Let's recap: October 17th through 21st.
Through 20th.
Or through the 20th.
Yep.
And it's called
Signs for the Times.
Signs for the Times.
And running along with that, I'm actually doing a condition training for people who want to come in and teach the same classes that I'm teaching. They can license the curriculum, and I have I think about 12 now. We're going to cap the class about 25. So if people are interested, we'll have ticket sales up this weekend, and they're going to go fast.
Is that on the
My
ECS
Therapy.
MyECSTherapy.org.
Do you know what ECS stands for?
Endocannabinoid system?
You're so smart.
Or is it endocannabinoid system? How do you say it?
I say endocannabinoid. But I have
what do you say?
Endocannabinoid.
Endocannabinoid. So
I've heard it several ways, though, and I don't have a problem with any of them. They all kind of sound right. MyECSTherapy.org.
There. We'll pin that. Yeah. Okay.
Yay. Oh, that's nice too. That's my my top 100 people of the year, or 100 people you should know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So here's proof. I know one of the 100 people you should know in cannabis.
I've met 4 more since since I've become one. Yeah, it's been great. I've run into people and they're like, "Hey, didn't I see? And I'm like, "You were one of those people? Let's look you up." I knew many of the people, but I didn't know them all. This industry, again, it's growing, and there's a certain amount of churn, so which is normal. But this is on this industry being such a new industry. The first few years were really crazy. Now I think the churn is more normalizing to what it should be. But it's hard to stay in business here with the regulations the way they are.
Well, I have people ask all the time, I want to move to Colorado. I'm like, do you? Do you?
Do you? When I moved here, I rented a 1-bedroom apartment in Thornton for $628 a month. I looked a couple months ago at the exact same apartment, $1,010 a month.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It was a piece of crap apartment then that had nothing, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's horrible. Well, but it's gone up, and I love Colorado. I really do. Me but too. It is, I'm thrilled I live here. But I feel like now we're full. People should go home. My roommate has a bumper sticker. You'll appreciate.
Texans go home?
No, it says, Colorado's full. We hear Kansas is nice.
Oklahoma's pretty good. Too.
You know, so I just thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, we hear Kansas is nice.
It'll be nicer next year after we
nicer.
plant a great big field with the crop duster and then cut a hemp maize in it.
Oh, that would be so great to do a hemp maize instead of a corn maize.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
It would. It'd be an expensive maize. You need to.
Well, no,
Well, it depends on what you do.
we've been working on a plan. I think it's affordable. I think it's affordable to the point where if we, do have the money for it, that it's a worthwhile endeavor. Even if it's not, I'm not expecting to make money from it.
Yeah.
I'm just expecting to end up knowing whether or not you can plant hemp with the crop duster in Kansas. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Also vote for Sarah Swain for Attorney General if you live in Kansas, by the way.
Oh, I love Sarah Swain. Yes, do vote for her.
Okay. I'm going to thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you,
Thanks for
Regina,
having me.
for coming in here. This
We'll
was
just talk all day.
special. Yeah.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, and buy my book.
But,
Yeah, absolutely. Buy your book.
it's a,
Shameless push.
oh, no, it's
No, it's why you were coming
I'll
here.
push it. Like, I want to buy this book.
I do
like
too. I have to have that one.
I've caught myself at some point. I'm going to land this thing. Bye.
Bye, everybody.